The museum world of Velterra Prime floated in space like a giant pearl. Ships from 100 different planets came and went every day, bringing visitors who wanted to see the treasures of dead civilizations. The biggest museum sat at the center of the main city, a building made of crystal that reached into the clouds. Jiho Park walked through the massive entrance halls, trying not to look impressed. He failed. The human archaeologist had seen pictures of this place, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. Each room was bigger than his entire research facility back on Earth. Floating platforms carried visitors between floors. Holographic displays showed artifacts from races that died before humans even existed. "First time here?" asked a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. The creature wore the uniform of a museum guide. That obvious. Jiho smiled and adjusted his datapad. "You have that look. All the new species do. Don't worry, you'll get used to it." The guide moved away to help another group. Jiho doubted he would ever get used to this. Humans had only joined the Galactic Council 200 years ago. They were still the new kids, still trying to prove they belonged among civilizations that had been traveling through space for thousands of years. Most older races treated humans like amusing children. Some were polite about it. Others were not. He had come to Velterra Prime on a simple mission: find any human artifacts that might have been collected before Earth made official contact with the galaxy. Old satellites, probe fragments, anything that could tell the story of humanity's early steps into space. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The day passed slowly. Jiho cataloged 3 ancient Earth satellites and 1 broken rover from Mars. He took measurements, updated records, and tried to ignore the condescending looks from the museum staff. By evening, most of the visitors had left. The massive halls grew quiet. Jiho decided to take a shortcut back to the entrance. The map on his datapad showed a route through something called the Hall of Dead Gods. He had heard about this place. It held weapons and religious items from the Precursors, a race that vanished 10 million years ago. Most scientists thought the Precursors were just myths, stories that primitive cultures made up to explain old ruins. But some artifacts remained, beautiful and mysterious. The hall was darker than the other rooms. Soft blue light came from the display cases. Jiho walked slowly, looking at each item. Stone tablets covered in unknown writing, metal spheres that hummed with energy, crystalline structures that seemed to fold in on themselves in impossible ways. Then he saw it. In the center of the hall, inside a cylindrical containment field, floated a blade. It was about as long as his arm, made of some material that looked like crystal and metal mixed together. The surface seemed to shift colors as he walked around it. Purple, then blue, then silver, then back to purple. The blade was beautiful in a way that made his chest hurt. A display screen next to the containment field showed information in multiple languages. Jiho tapped it to switch to Korean. The text explained that this was the Eternity Blade, supposedly forged by the Precursors. According to legend, it could control the fundamental forces of reality. Every major civilization in the galaxy had tried to claim it over the past million years. None had succeeded. The blade never responded to anyone. Pretty, isn't it? A voice made Jiho jump. He turned to see a Vothram curator, a being that looked like a mix between a lizard and a bear. The creature's name tag read Veloth. "Very pretty," Jiho agreed. "Does it actually do anything?" Veloth laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Nothing at all. It just sits there looking impressive. We used to think it had power, but after 1,000,000 years of testing, we know better. It's just a very old piece of art. The Precursors probably made it for decoration. Then why keep it in a containment field? Tradition. Also, it's valuable. Collectors would pay billions for it." Veloth moved closer to the display. Every few centuries, some fool tries to prove the legends are real. They touch it, expecting something magical to happen. Nothing ever does. The blade is dead, if it was ever alive at all. Jiho nodded, but something about the blade bothered him. He had spent his whole life studying ancient things. He knew the difference between art and tools. This thing was not made for decoration. Every line, every curve served a purpose. He could feel it. Well, enjoy the view. The museum closes in 30 minutes. Veloth walked away, leaving Jiho alone with the blade. He should have left. He had work to finish, reports to write, a shuttle to catch in the morning. But Jiho found himself standing in front of the containment field, staring at the weapon. Up close, he could see tiny markings along its surface. Not decoration. Writing maybe, or diagrams. He leaned closer, trying to make out the details. The containment field flickered. Just for a second, so brief that Jiho almost thought he imagined it. Some kind of power fluctuation, probably normal in a building this old, but in that moment his hand had been reaching out, and suddenly there was nothing between his fingers and the blade. He touched it. The world exploded into light. Jiho couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't think. Energy poured through him like a river of fire. The blade was scanning him, reading him, judging him. He felt it dive into his memories, his thoughts, his dreams. It saw everything he was and everything he could be. The experience was terrible and beautiful and overwhelming. Somewhere far away, alarms started screaming. He heard voices shouting, footsteps running. But none of that mattered. The only real thing in the universe was the blade and the question it asked without words. Are you worthy? Jiho didn't know. He was just an archaeologist from Earth. He wasn't special. He wasn't a hero. He was nobody important, but something in him refused to let go. Something stubborn and human and maybe a little bit stupid. If the blade wanted to judge him, fine. Let it judge. He had nothing to hide. The light grew brighter, hotter, more intense. Jiho felt like he was burning from the inside out. Just when he thought he couldn't take any more, when he was sure he would die, the blade made its decision. The light changed. It stopped hurting. Instead, it felt warm, welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. The blade's weight settled into his hand, perfectly balanced. Knowledge flooded his mind, information he couldn't possibly understand but somehow knew was important. The light faded. Jiho opened his eyes. The containment field was gone, shattered into pieces on the floor. The blade rested in his hand, its surface now showing patterns that hadn't been visible before. Around him, dozens of security guards pointed weapons at his head. Museum staff shouted in languages he didn't understand. Alarms blared loud enough to hurt his ears, and Veloth stared at him with an expression of absolute shock. Impossible, the Vothrim whispered. The blade chose. After 10 million years, it chose. Jiho looked down at the weapon in his hand. His life had just become very complicated. The blade hummed softly as if agreeing with him. The security guards didn't shoot, which Jiho thought was a good sign. They kept their weapons pointed at him but seemed confused about what to do. Nobody had planned for this situation. The blade was supposed to be a dead relic, not something that could actually wake up. Veloth stepped forward carefully, his 4 eyes wide with fear and wonder. Human put down the weapon slowly. Jiho tried to open his hand. The blade wouldn't let go. It wasn't stuck to his skin or anything like that. It just felt wrong to release it, like trying to cut off his own arm. I can't, it won't let me. Then we have a problem. Veloth gestured to the guards. Take him to medical containment carefully. If that weapon activates, it could destroy the entire museum. 2 guards approached Jiho from either side. The moment they touched his shoulders, the blade pulsed with bright light. A wave of energy rippled outward, gentle but firm. The guards flew backward and hit the floor, unconscious but breathing. The other security personnel stepped back quickly. Nobody touch him, Veloth shouted. Call the council. Call everyone. We need experts here now. Jiho stood in the center of the hall, holding a weapon he didn't understand, surrounded by people who were terrified of him. His head hurt. Information kept flooding into his mind, but it came too fast. Images, equations, star maps, warnings. He couldn't process any of it. All he knew for certain was that something very old and very powerful had just woken up, and it had chosen him for reasons he couldn't begin to understand. The next few hours were chaos. Scientists arrived from all over the galaxy. They set up equipment around Jiho, scanning him and the blade from every angle. Nobody dared get too close. A medical team checked the unconscious guards. They were fine, just sleeping. Whatever the blade had done, it hadn't wanted to hurt anyone. A human woman pushed through the crowd. She had short black hair and wore the uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. Her name tag said Hana Im Xenolinguist. Jiho, are you okay? She stayed outside the circle of equipment but looked genuinely worried. Hana? Jiho recognized her from the embassy on Veltara Prime. They had met briefly at a reception last week. What are you doing here? I'm assigned to you now. Congratulations, you just became the most important human in the galaxy. She didn't sound happy about it. Can you tell me what happened? Jiho explained about the power fluctuation, the accidental touch, the light. Hana listened carefully, taking notes on her data pad. Around them, scientists argued in a dozen different languages. Some wanted to try removing the blade by force. Others wanted to study Jiho for months. A few suggested he might be dangerous and should be isolated. Veloth finally restored order. Enough. The human will be transferred to medical containment. We'll run every test possible, and someone contact the Galactic Council immediately. They need to know about this. They moved Jiho to a special medical facility deep inside the museum. The room was designed to hold dangerous artifacts safely. Force fields covered every wall. Medical scanners hung from the ceiling. Hana stayed with him, which he appreciated. At least he had one friendly face. A doctor examined him, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish. Your vital signs are elevated but stable. The weapon appears to have bonded with your nervous system. I've never seen anything like it. Can you remove it? Jiho asked. I don't think so. Not without killing you. The blade is integrated. It's become part of you on a cellular level. The doctor floated away, murmuring about impossible biology. Hana sat down across from Jiho. The news is spreading fast. Every major civilization is freaking out. The Vothram Empire especially. They've been trying to claim that blade for 50,000 years. And a human just walked up and took it. Jiho laughed, but it sounded bitter. They must love that. Oh, they hate it. The council is demanding answers. Earth's ambassador is on his way, a man named Taeyang Choi. He'll be here in a few hours. Hana leaned closer and lowered her voice. Jiho, this is bigger than you realize. That blade is supposed to be a myth. If it's real, if it actually has power, it changes everything. Wars have been fought over less. Jiho looked at the weapon in his hand. In the medical facility's bright lights, it looked almost ordinary. Just a piece of metal and crystal. But he could feel it humming with potential. Deep in his mind, the flood of information continued. He was starting to understand some of it now. Star charts showing places he had never heard of. Technical diagrams for technology that shouldn't exist. And warnings. So many warnings. Hana, I think something bad is coming. What do you mean? I don't know exactly. The blade is trying to tell me something, but I can't understand most of it. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. Jiho closed his eyes and concentrated. Images flashed through his mind. Huge ships bigger than planets. Darkness spreading across stars. Screams in languages that hurt to hear. There was a war. A long time ago, the precursors fought something and they lost. The precursors are extinct, Jiho. They've been gone for 10 million years. I know, but whatever killed them might not be. Before Hana could respond, the door opened. Taeyang Choi walked in, followed by a group of officials from various species. The ambassador was a tall man with gray hair and a permanently worried expression. Right now he looked even more worried than usual. Mr. Park, I'm Ambassador Choi. We need to talk about your situation. I'm sorry about this, Jiho said. I didn't mean to cause an incident. No apologies necessary. You're not in trouble. Well, not with Earth anyway. The Council is a different story. Taeyang pulled up a chair. They've given us 72 hours to explain how a human activated a precursor weapon. If we can't provide a satisfactory answer, there will be consequences. Some species are calling for your immediate imprisonment. Others want the weapon destroyed. A few are demanding humanity's expulsion from the Council. That seems extreme. The blade represents power that nobody understands. Fear makes people extreme. Taeyang looked at the weapon. Can you tell us anything about it? How it works? Why it chose you? Jiho tried to organize the chaos in his head. It's not just a weapon. It's a library, a computer, a test, and a warning system all in one. The precursors made it to fight something they called the Devourers. Entities from outside normal space. The precursors lost that war and died. The blade was hidden, waiting for someone worthy to find it. And it thinks you're worthy? A Vothram official asked, his voice dripping with skepticism. I don't know why. I'm nobody special. The blade pulsed in his hand. Suddenly, Jiho's vision changed. He could see everyone in the room differently, not with his eyes, but with some other sense. He saw their intentions, their fears, their potential. Most of the officials were afraid or angry. Taeyang was worried but protective. Hana was scared but determined. And behind them all, in the back of the room, one of the security guards had a different feeling. Cold. Empty. Wrong. Get down. Jiho shouted. The guard pulled out a weapon and fired. Not at Jiho, but at the medical equipment. Explosions ripped through the room. The force fields failed. People screamed and dove for cover. The guard fired again, this time at Taeyang. The blade moved on its own. Jiho's body reacted before his mind could catch up. He raised the weapon and a shield of light appeared, blocking the shots. The energy rounds hit the barrier and disappeared. The guard's face twisted into something inhuman. Its voice came out wrong, like multiple voices speaking at once. The Devourers return. You cannot stop what is coming. The feast begins soon. Then the guard's body collapsed, empty. Whatever had been controlling it was gone. Alarms screamed again. More security poured into the room. Medical teams rushed to help the injured. Taeyang stared at Jiho with new understanding and new fear. Hana grabbed Jiho's arm. What was that thing? A scout. A warning. Jiho felt sick. The information in his head suddenly made terrible sense. The Devourers didn't die. They just went away to feed somewhere else. Now they're coming back, and nobody in the galaxy was ready. The attack changed everything. Within hours, Jiho was transferred to Nexus Eternal, the central station where the Galactic Council met. The journey took 3 days on the fastest ship Earth could provide. Jiho spent most of that time in a medical bay, trying to understand the blade and the visions it kept showing him. Hana stayed with him, helping translate the flood of information into something useful. She had brought every piece of research about the precursors that existed. Most of it was guesswork and theories, but together, they started to build a picture of what had happened 10 million years ago. The precursors were reality manipulators, Hana explained. Scrolling through ancient texts on her datapad, they could change the laws of physics just by thinking about it. Every species in the galaxy knows the stories, but nobody believed they were real. They were real, and they were terrified. Jiho touched the blade gently. More images came, cities that folded through multiple dimensions, battles fought across time itself, and always in the background the Devourers, creatures of pure hunger that ate entire galaxies. They made 12 blades as a last defense. Each one could erase matter from existence or reshape reality. With all 12 working together, they thought they could win. What happened? They only finished the blades right before the end. There wasn't enough time to use them properly. The precursors scattered the weapons across the galaxy and hoped someone would find them later. Jiho closed his eyes. The next part hurt to remember. The Devourers consumed everything. Planets, stars, the precursors themselves. Then they left to find more food in other galaxies. But they always come back. Hana was quiet for a long moment. How long do we have? I don't know. Weeks, maybe. The blade isn't clear about time, but they're close. That scout was a warning. When they arrived at Nexus Eternal, Jiho was immediately taken to the council chambers. The station was massive, a structure the size of a moon that held millions of beings from hundreds of worlds. The council chambers themselves could seat representatives from every member species. Today the room was packed. Jiho walked down the center aisle with guards on either side. The blade stayed in his hand. He had tried leaving it behind, but the weapon simply appeared back in his grip a moment later. Apparently, separation was no longer an option. The assembly of 12 sat on a raised platform. Each member represented one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. The Vothram High Chancellor, a being named Vorath, glared at Jiho with undisguised hatred. Others looked curious or afraid. A few seemed almost amused. Ambassador Taeyang stood beside Jiho as his advocate. Hana sat in the observer section, her face pale with worry. The council recognizes the human Jiho Park, announced the speaker, a being made entirely of light. You stand accused of theft of galactic heritage, illegal activation of protected artifacts, and causing a diplomatic incident. How do you answer? I didn't steal anything, Jiho said. His voice echoed in the huge chamber. I touched the blade by accident. It chose me. I don't know why. A convenient excuse. Vorath stood up, his massive form imposing. Humans are the newest species in the council. The least advanced, the least worthy, yet we are expected to believe that a precursor weapon ignored every elder race and chose one of you. I say this is a trick. A deception. The humans must have found technology to fake the blade's activation. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Jiho felt anger rising but forced it down. Getting emotional wouldn't help. If it's a trick, then test me, he said. Bring your best scientists. Examine the blade. I'll cooperate with anything you want. We don't need tests. We need answers. Another council member spoke, a silicate being that looked like living crystal. That weapon is dangerous. It should be destroyed before it causes harm. You can't destroy it, Jiho said. Even if you could separate it from me, which would probably kill me, the blade is indestructible. The precursors made it to last forever. Then you will remain in containment forever, a small price to pay for galactic security. Taeyang stepped forward. With respect, the Council cannot imprison a being for an accident. Mr. Park has committed no crime. He is willing to share information about the blade. Surely that is more valuable than punishment. The arguments continued for hours. Different species had different opinions. Some wanted to study the blade, others wanted to lock it away. A few suggested simply spacing Jiho and hoping the weapon would deactivate. Through it all, Jiho stood quietly, letting Taeyang handle the politics. He was too busy listening to the blade. Something was coming. He could feel it building like pressure before a storm. Enough debate, the speaker finally said. We will vote on the human's fate. All in favor of immediate containment. The station shook. Alarms blared throughout Nexus Eternal. Emergency lights flashed red. A holographic display appeared above the council, showing the space around the station. A tear in reality had opened, bleeding darkness into normal space. Something was coming through. Defensive positions, Varath shouted. All ships engage! The Devourer scout emerged from the rift like a nightmare taking physical form. It was smaller than the legends described, only about the size of a cruiser, but it radiated wrongness. The ship was black, but not the black of empty space. It was the black of things that should not exist, matter that consumed light instead of reflecting it. The station's weapons fired. Energy beams, missiles, particle cannons, everything Nexus Eternal had. The weapons hit the Devourer ship and vanished, absorbed like water into sand. The creature didn't even slow down. It fired back. Black tendrils of energy reached out and touched 3 Council warships. The ship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not torn apart. Just gone, erased from reality as if they had never been. Panic filled the Council chambers. Representatives screamed and ran for the exits. The guards tried to maintain order but failed. In seconds, the organized government of the galaxy turned into a mob of terrified beings. Jiho felt the blade burning in his hand. It wanted to fight. It had been made for exactly this purpose, but he didn't know how to use it. The visions hadn't included an instruction manual. Jiho. Hana was suddenly beside him, having pushed through the crowd. What do we do? I don't know. I've never done this before. You stopped that guard's weapon with a shield. Can you do that again? Bigger? The Devourer scout fired at the station itself. The defensive shields held for a moment, then shattered. The blast tore through the outer hull. Hundreds died instantly, sucked into space. The station began breaking apart. Jiho made a decision. Right or wrong, he had to try something. He ran, not away from danger, but toward it. Hana followed, shouting for him to stop. Taeyang tried to keep up but fell behind. Jiho pushed through the panicking crowds and reached an observation deck. Through the transparent walls, he could see the Devourer scout destroying ship after ship. Jiho, what are you doing? Hana grabbed his arm. Something stupid, probably. He raised the blade. Get behind me. The weapon responded to his will. Power flowed through him, burning and cold at the same time. The blade showed him how to shape it, how to direct it, how to make it real. He didn't fully understand what he was doing. It was more instinct than knowledge, the blade guiding his actions. Light exploded from the weapon. Not the gentle light from before. This was harsh and absolute, the light of creation and destruction mixed together. It formed a beam that shot out from the observation deck, crossed the distance between the station and the scout in an instant, and struck the Devourer ship dead center. Reality screamed. The laws of physics bent and broke. For a moment, Jiho could see other dimensions overlapping with normal space, places where the rules were different. The blade reached into those places and pulled, unmaking the Devourer scout from every possible reality at once. The ship vanished. The rift closed. Silence fell across the battlefield. Jiho collapsed. Blood poured from his nose and ears. Every cell in his body felt like it was on fire. Using the blade had nearly killed him. Hana caught him before he hit the ground, shouting for medical help. Did it work? Jiho whispered. It's gone. You destroyed it. Hana's voice shook. You saved everyone. Good. His vision faded to black. Because I can't do that again anytime soon. The last thing he heard before unconsciousness took him was Hana calling his name and the blade humming softly, almost proudly in his hand. Jiho woke up 3 days later in a medical facility. Every part of his body hurt. Doctors from 6 different species had worked around the clock to keep him alive. Using the blade had damaged him in ways that normal medicine couldn't heal. The weapon's energy had burned through his cells like acid, but he was alive. That was more than he expected. Hana sat beside his bed looking exhausted. "Welcome back. You scared us." "Sorry." His voice came out as a whisper. "What happened with the council?" "Everything changed. You proved the Devourers are real and that the blade works. The council isn't trying to imprison you anymore. Now they want your help." She handed him a data pad. "They've authorized a mission to find the other 11 blades. If one weapon could destroy a scout ship, 12 might stand a chance against the full fleet." Jiho scrolled through the mission details. They were giving him a ship, a crew, and complete authority to search anywhere in the galaxy. It was more trust than he expected. "They really think we can find all 12 blades?" "They're desperate." Long-range sensors detected something at the edge of the galaxy, a massive ship so large it blocks out stars. "The Devourers are coming, and they'll be here in months, not years." The medical team released Jiho a week later. He could walk, barely. But the blade's energy had permanently changed him. His eyes sometimes glowed in the dark. He could sense things he shouldn't be able to sense, like emotions and intentions. The boundary between him and the weapon was blurring. Earth's military provided a ship called the Horizon's Edge. It was small but fast, designed for deep space exploration. The crew was mixed, humans and aliens working together. Ambassador Taiyang insisted that Hana join as the mission's chief researcher. She protested, saying she was a linguist, not an adventurer, but Taiyang wouldn't take no for an answer. The pilot surprised everyone. Her name was Somin Kang, a Korean woman who looked barely old enough to drive a car, let alone fly a starship. She had short purple hair and a permanent grin that suggested she found danger amusing. "You're trusting me with your life," she told Jiho during their first meeting. "Don't worry, I'm very good. Only crashed twice, and both times everyone survived." "That's not reassuring," Jiho said. "It should be. Most pilots can't say that." Salman patted the ship's control panel lovingly. "The Edge and I will get you anywhere you need to go. The question is, where are we going?" Jiho closed his eyes and let the blade guide him. Star maps appeared in his mind, showing locations scattered across the galaxy. There, that system. 3rd planet from the star. The Horizon's Edge jumped to faster than light speed. The journey took 2 weeks. Jiho spent the time learning to control the blade's power without killing himself. It wasn't easy. Every time he activated the weapon, it drained his life force. The doctor said if he used it too many more times like he did at Nexus Eternal, his body would simply burn out. They also picked up another crew member along the way. His name was Kiros, a silicate warrior who had helped evacuate civilians during the Devourer attack. He was massive, almost 3 meters tall, made of living crystal that glowed with inner light. Despite his size, he was gentle and thoughtful. "I saw what you did on the station," Kiros told Jiho. "You saved my family. They were in the section that would have been destroyed. I owe you a life debt. You don't owe me anything. Nevertheless, I will follow you until this threat is ended." Kiros placed one massive hand over his chest, a gesture of oath-taking among his people. The first blade was hidden on a planet that orbited a dying star. The world was mostly lava and ash, with temperatures hot enough to melt most metals. Salman brought the ship down to a landing platform carved into volcanic rock. "Sensors show the artifact is in a chamber about 2 kilometers below the surface," Hana reported. "There's a tunnel system, but it's unstable. One wrong step and we'll be swimming in magma." They went anyway. Jiho, Hana, Kiros, and 2 security officers descended into the planet's depths. The heat was incredible even through their protective suits. The tunnel twisted and turned, sometimes so narrow they had to crawl. The blade guided Jiho forward. He could feel its sibling calling, recognizing him. The chamber was breathtaking, a natural cave the size of a cathedral, lit by glowing lava flows. In the center, floating above a pillar of stone, was the second Eternity blade. It looked similar to Jiho's weapon, but slightly different, made for a different hand. "Now what?" Hana asked. "Now we find out who it chooses." Jiho approached the blade carefully. When he got close, it began to glow. His own weapon hummed in response. For a moment, the 2 blades connected, sharing information. Then the second weapon pulsed with light and shot across the chamber. It flew straight to Kiros. The silicate warrior caught it instinctively. Light erupted, just like when Jiho first touched his blade. Kiros screamed as the weapon scanned him, judged him, tested him. The process lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, Kiros held the second Eternity Blade and tears of liquid crystal ran down his face. "It showed me everything," he whispered. "The war, the sacrifice, the hope that someone would continue the fight." He looked at Jiho. "We are not alone anymore." Over the next 3 months, they found 2 more blades. Each location was deadly.
One blade hid in the heart of a collapsing star, protected by gravity fields that should have crushed them.
Another was locked in a dimensional maze where the laws of space didn't work properly, but they succeeded. The third blade chose a young Vothram named Daehyun, barely an adult by his species standards. He had stowed away on a cargo ship to escape an arranged marriage, and ended up joining the Horizon's Edge crew as a mechanic. The blade recognized his courage to defy tradition. The fourth blade chose someone even more unexpected. A member of the Hive Consciousness, a species that shared one group mind among billions of bodies. But this particular body had developed independent thoughts, a glitch that should have been corrected. The blade saw value in that uniqueness and chose the individual over the collective. The Hive Consciousness was furious, but the blade didn't care. 4 blades, 8 still missing. They would have kept searching, but time ran out. Long-range sensors detected the Devourer fleet entering the galaxy. The images that came back made Jiho's blood run cold. Millions of ships, each one bigger than the scout they had destroyed. They moved through space like a swarm of insects, consuming everything in their path. Entire star systems went dark as the Devourers fed. "We need to find the other blades," Hana said, studying the tactical displays on the Horizon's Edge. "There's no time." Jiho felt sick. "They'll reach inhabited space in weeks. We have 4 blades. It's going to have to be enough." Summon set course for the Galactic Core. The Council had committed every military ship they had to make a stand there. Millions of beings from hundreds of worlds would fight together. It probably wouldn't be enough, but they had to try. The journey to the core took 5 days. Jiho spent the time coordinating with the other blade wielders. They practiced synchronizing their weapons, learning to work together. It wasn't perfect. The blades were designed to function as a set of 12, not 4. But they were learning. On the last night before the battle, Jiho couldn't sleep. He stood on the observation deck watching the stars stream past. Hana found him there. "Thinking deep thoughts?" she asked. "Thinking we're probably going to die tomorrow?" "Probably, but we might not. 4 blades destroyed a scout. Maybe we can hurt the fleet enough to make them run." Jiho looked at his weapon. Over the months, it had become part of him. He knew its thoughts, its history, its purpose. The precursors made these weapons as a last resort. They knew they were going to lose, but they hoped someone would find the blades and do better. Then let's not disappoint them. The next morning, they arrived at the Galactic Core. The sight took Jiho's breath away. Thousands of warships filled the space between stars. Every species, every nation, every faction that could spare a vessel had sent them. It was the largest military force ever assembled, and against what was coming, it might not be nearly enough. The Devourers arrived 6 hours later. The darkness between the stars grew deeper as their fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. Jiho watched them come and gripped his blade tighter. "This is it," Soman said quietly. "Everyone ready?" Jiho looked at his crew, at the other blade wielders, at the massive fleet around them. People who should have been enemies working together. Humans and aliens, ancient species and new ones, all united against a common threat. "Ready as we'll ever be," he said. The battle for the galaxy was about to begin. The Devourer fleet filled the space around the Galactic Core like a plague. Their ships didn't reflect light. They absorbed it, creating holes in space where stars should have been visible. The darkness spread as they advanced, swallowing everything in their path. The Council fleet opened fire first. Thousands of ships launched everything they had. Energy weapons, missiles, kinetic rounds, experimental technology that had never been tested in real combat. The barrage was impressive, a wall of destruction that should have vaporized any normal enemy. The Devourers fed on it. The weapons simply disappeared into the black ships, absorbed like drops of water into an ocean. The enemy didn't slow down or change course. They just kept coming, hungry and patient and inevitable. Phase 1 failed. Admiral Yuna Lee reported from the human flagship. She was in command of the combined fleet, chosen because Earth had the least political baggage. "All ships fall back to defensive positions. Blade wielders, you're up. Jiho stood on the observation deck of the horizon's edge, watching the fleet retreat. Beside him, the other 3 blade wielders prepared themselves. Kiros, the silicate warrior, said a prayer in his native language. Daehyun, the young Vuthrim, looked terrified but determined. The hive individual, who had chosen the name Minho for itself, stood perfectly still and focused. We take positions at the cardinal points just like we practiced, Jiho said. When I give the signal, we fire together. The blades need to work in harmony. And if it doesn't work, Daehyun asked, then we die trying. But at least we die doing something instead of running away. Salmon piloted the horizon's edge to the northern position. The other blade wielders went to their assigned locations in different ships. They spread out around the core, forming a square with millions of kilometers between each point. Hana worked at a computer station, calculating firing angles and synchronization timings. The math says this should work. 4 blades can't seal the rift like 12 could, but they should be able to damage the fleet, should being the important word. I trust your calculations, Jiho said. I don't. I'm a linguist, not a weapons expert. I'm making this up as I go. The Devourer fleet entered weapons range. They ignored the retreating council ships and focused on the 4 positions where the blade wielders waited. Somehow they knew. They recognized the only real threat and moved to eliminate it. They're concentrating fire on us, Kiros reported through the communication system. Shields won't hold long. Then we don't give them long. Jiho raised his blade. Everyone ready? On my mark. 3, 2, 1, now. 4 beams of pure white light erupted from 4 different positions. The blades sang in harmony, their power synchronized through the connection they shared. The beams converged on the center of the Devourer fleet and exploded outward in a sphere of destruction. Reality itself screamed. The laws of physics bent and twisted. For a moment, Jiho could see through the walls between dimensions. He saw the Devourers for what they really were. Not ships, but living creatures from a place where existence worked differently. They had crossed into normal space to feed, to consume matter and energy to sustain their impossible forms. The sphere of light expanded, erasing Devourer ships from existence. Hundreds died, then thousands. The blast wave kept growing, fed by the 4 blades working together. The enemy fleet recoiled, trying to escape the destruction, but it wasn't enough. There were too many. For every ship destroyed, 10 more remained. The Devourers regrouped and attacked with renewed fury. Jiho felt his body burning. Using the blade like this was killing him slowly. Blood ran from his nose and ears. His vision blurred. Around him, he heard the others crying out in pain through the communication system. They were all dying, consumed by the weapons they wielded. We can't keep this up, Daehyun gasped. The power is too much. We have to. Jiho poured more of himself into the blade. Just a little longer. There are too many, Minho shouted. We're barely making a dent in their numbers. We need all 12 blades or we need to retreat. Jiho knew Minho was right. 4 blades could hurt the Devourers but not stop them. The enemy would keep coming, keep feeding until nothing remained. Then Hana spoke, her voice quiet but urgent. Jiho, I found something in the precursor data. There's a protocol the original makers considered but never used. It's dangerous, maybe suicidal, but it might work. Tell me. The 4 blades can combine their power through a single wielder. It would create an effect equivalent to all 12 blades for a short time, long enough to seal the rift and trap the Devourers outside normal space forever. She paused. But the person who serves as the conduit will be destroyed. The energy would burn them out completely. Jiho understood immediately. A sacrifice, a trade. 1 life to save the galaxy. I'll do it, he said. No. Kiros' voice was firm. I am oldest. I have lived a full life. Let me. I should do it, Daehyun said. I'm the youngest. My sacrifice would mean more years saved. Logic suggests I am the best choice, Minho added. My individual existence is already considered an error by my people. My loss would be mourned by none. All of you shut up, Jiho said. He felt tears on his face but didn't wipe them away. The blade chose me first. This is my responsibility. Hana, send me the protocol. Everyone else, prepare to transfer your blade's energy on my signal. Jiho, no. Hana grabbed his arm. There has to be another way. There isn't. We both know it. He smiled at her, trying to be brave. Humanity isn't special because we're stronger or smarter. We're special because we're willing to die for people we've never met. That's what the blade saw in me. That's what makes any of us worthy. He activated the protocol before anyone could argue further. The data flooded into his mind, showing him exactly what he needed to do. It was simple, really. Become a channel. Let the energy flow through him instead of from him. Accept the cost. Transfer power now. The other 3 blade wielders hesitated, then obeyed. Their weapons glowed bright and sent streams of energy across the void. The power flowed into Jiho's blade, then into Jiho himself. It was like being hit by a star. Every cell in his body ignited. He was burning, dying, being consumed from the inside out. But he held on. The blade transformed in his hand, growing brighter, more intense. It contained the power of 4 weapons, almost enough to match what 12 could do. Almost enough to end this. Jiho raised the weapon one final time. His body was failing, breaking apart at the molecular level, but it didn't matter. He had enough strength for one last action. For the precursors, he whispered. For the galaxy. For everyone who wants to see tomorrow. He released everything. The light that erupted from the blade was beyond description. It was the light of creation, of endings and beginnings mixed together. It rewrote reality in a sphere expanding from the galactic core. The Devourer ships didn't just die. They were erased backwards through time, unmade so completely that they had never existed. The rift between dimensions, the hole the Devourers used to enter normal space, sealed shut. More than sealed, it was locked with barriers woven from the fundamental forces of reality. The Devourers were trapped outside, unable to return for millions of years. The blast wave reached outward, but instead of destroying, it healed. Dead worlds near the core bloomed with life. Broken ships found their systems miraculously repaired. The galaxy itself seemed to take a breath and live again. On the horizon's edge, the light faded. Selman and Hana rushed to the observation deck. They found Jiho collapsed on the floor. The blade shattered into fragments around him. He wasn't breathing. His skin was pale and cold. No, no, no. Hana dropped to her knees beside him. Jiho, stay with me. You don't get to die. Not after all this. She started emergency treatment, calling for medical teams. Soman helped, using every trick she knew to restart his heart. Other ships sent aid. Doctors from a dozen species worked together, combining their knowledge in ways never before attempted. It took 3 hours of desperate effort, but they brought him back. Barely. Jiho's body had been ravaged by the energy. He would never be the same. Part of the blade's power remained fused with his cells, changing him in ways nobody understood. But he was alive. The medical teams kept him in a coma for 3 months while his body healed. The galaxy changed around him. The council reformed, with new representatives and new attitudes. The old prejudices didn't disappear overnight, but they weakened. If a human could save everyone, then maybe potential existed in unexpected places. When Jiho finally woke, Hana was there. She had barely left his side the entire time. "Welcome back," she said, smiling through tears. "You scared us again. Did it work?" His voice was rough from disuse. "The Devourers are gone, trapped outside our dimension. The rift is sealed. You saved everyone." She squeezed his hand gently. "But you're an idiot for not letting us help more." "Sorry. Don't be sorry. Just don't do anything that stupid again." Jiho tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. "I'll try. Where are the others?" "Kiros is here. Daehyun and Minho, too. They've been waiting to see you." The other blade wielders came in, looking relieved and happy. Their weapons had survived, though they were dimmed now, their power spent for the moment. They would recharge eventually, but it would take years. Jiho learned about everything he had missed. Earth had been given a permanent seat on the council. Humanity was no longer seen as primitive newcomers, but as equals.